A distant rumble of thunder echoed above the sprawling Whitmore estate, casting ominous shadows across the grand marble floors. Inside, Eva Donovan Whitmore clutched her pregnant belly, her heart pounding, as she braced herself for another confrontation with her domineering mother-in-law, Marjorie Whitmore. It wasn't that Marjorie disapproved of Eva, she outright resented her, treating her as little more than an inconvenience. Watching from the far end of the corridor was Eva's husband, Adrian Whitmore, a billionaire heir whose fortune could command every comfort on earth, yet who stood frozen as dark secrets and sinister manipulation threatened the very woman he vowed to protect. Eva Donovan Whitmore often reflected on the day she first met Adrian Whitmore's mother, Marjorie. It was at a charity gala in Manhattan, an event hosted by Marjorie herself to benefit orphaned children in Eastern Europe. Eva, then a rising graphic designer with a passion for community service, had been volunteering behind the scenes. When she accidentally spilled a drop of champagne on the edge of Marjorie's beaded evening gown, the older woman's gaze turned frigid. Yet, for the sake of Adrian, Marjorie had forced a brittle smile that evening and said, "Be more careful next time, dear." Eva could sense the calculation in those eyes. From that moment on, she knew Marjorie Whitmore was not one to be crossed. Still, nothing prepared her for the cruelty that would surface later. Months later, after Adrian had courted her with a whirlwind romance, dinners at exclusive restaurants, private weekend getaways in the Hamptons, late-night strolls in the shimmering lights of Central Park, he proposed on a secluded Italian beach. Eva, breathless with love, accepted immediately, having no inkling of the shadow that would soon follow them. She believed that once Marjorie got to know her, the tension would ease. But Marjorie had other ideas. Now Eva was nearly 4 months pregnant and under strict orders from Marjorie to remain at the Whitmore family estate for proper care. The estate was an architectural marvel, nestled on the outskirts of Westchester County, featuring sprawling manicured gardens, a private lake, and a mansion that boasted everything from heated marble floors to secret passageways installed during Prohibition. What was meant to be a dream sanctuary for a soon-to-be mother had turned into a gilded cage. Before Adrian left for a short business trip to negotiate an Infinitec merger in Singapore, he had hesitated. "I don't want to leave you alone with Mother," he confessed, his voice trembling. "She can be overbearing. Promise me you'll call if anything happens." Eva had merely smiled, wanting to appear strong. "I promise," she said, hugging him tightly. "I can handle a few days with her." But she soon discovered that as soon as Adrian's private jet left the country, Marjorie's facade of politeness disappeared entirely. The older woman saw Eva's pregnancy not as a joyous occasion, but as a tool, something to manipulate and control. At first, it was the little remarks, "You're too frail to be walking in the garden alone," or "Are you certain you want to eat that? It might be bad for the baby." Then it escalated. Marjorie began assigning daily schedules to Eva, forcing her to undergo endless traditional treatments or to rest at odd hours, all under the guise of preserving the Whitmore lineage. "Emily Peterson, my private nurse, will watch over you," Marjorie proclaimed one morning. "No more wandering about without supervision. Is that clear?" Eva blinked in confusion, her stomach fluttering with anxiety. "Supervision? Marjorie, I'm pregnant, not infirm," she tried to protest. Marjorie's frost-grey eyes narrowed. "Don't you dare raise your voice at me. This is my grandchild we're talking about. You will follow my instructions." From then on, Emily Peterson shadowed Eva's every step, notepad in hand, reporting back to Marjorie at regular intervals. It was as if Eva was reduced to a child who couldn't be trusted in her own home. One evening, Eva's best friend, Michelle Oberton, someone who had once traveled with her to volunteer in rural Haiti, visited with a bouquet of pink roses. Marjorie met Michelle at the door, blocking her entry. "I'm afraid Eva is too tired for visitors," she snapped. She didn't even attempt to hide her disdain. "Check back some other time." Michelle tried to insist, but Marjorie shot her a glare that froze her in place. Dejected and worried, Michelle left, texting Eva a short note. "You okay? Call me if you need me, no matter what." Eva, however, didn't see the text for hours. Marjorie had conveniently taken away her phone for safety reasons, claiming electromagnetic waves were harmful to the baby. Every moment of Marjorie's presence eroded Eva's confidence. She felt alone, powerless. The Whitmore staff, from the gardeners to the cooks, had served Marjorie for decades and were loyal to her. If Eva tried to confide in anyone, they would likely run straight to Marjorie. When Adrian returned from Singapore, Eva rushed to greet him, tears brimming in her eyes. But Marjorie had orchestrated an elaborate welcome, arranging a lavish dinner, complete with string quartet and a curated menu. She smothered Adrian with talk of the baby, their future philanthropic ventures, and how she had taken care of everything while he was away. Eva hardly got a moment alone with him before Marjorie pulled him aside for a private chat. It would take Eva another 3 days to finally find a chance to share her worries with Adrian. She whispered her concerns late one night in their bedroom suite, terrified that someone might be eavesdropping at the door. Adrian seemed troubled. "I had no idea Mother was being so extreme," he said, eyes darting around as if he expected Marjorie to barge in any second. "I'll talk to her, Eva, I promise." However, the next morning, Marjorie cornered Eva in the library, towering over her. "I understand you've been telling my son tales of my mistreatment," she hissed. "How ungrateful. Need I remind you that you married into my family?" Eva's pulse pounded in her ears. "I only told Adrian the truth," she said softly, hugging her belly protectively. "Please, Marjorie, I don't want conflict. I just need some space and—" Marjorie's hand shot out and gripped Eva's shoulder, nails digging into her skin. "Keep your mouth shut, or you'll regret it," she warned, voice dripping with venom. Her eyes flickered to Eva's belly. "You'll do as I say, or you might find that this family has no place for you, or your child." Shaken to the core, Eva realized the fight was only beginning. Eva's days at the Whitmore mansion were consumed by a meticulously orchestrated routine: meals at specific times, enforced rest periods, mandatory prenatal classes scheduled by Marjorie with doctors Eva didn't even choose. The woman had an uncanny way of making every controlling gesture seem like it was for Eva's own good. "You will attend Dr. Baudelaire's clinic," Marjorie declared one afternoon. "He's delivered countless heirs for high society families. We don't need any incompetent public hospital staff messing this up." Eva's heart sank. She liked her own doctor, Cecilia Montoya, who championed a more natural approach and put Eva's comfort first. But Marjorie insisted, and Adrian, always busy juggling business expansions, often found it easier to agree with his mother. That's not to say Adrian was indifferent. In fact, he sensed the unease in Eva's eyes each time she was forced into another stifling regimen. He tried to intervene, reminding his mother to give Eva freedom. But Marjorie always deflected, feigning hurt and disappointment in Adrian's lack of trust in her maternal wisdom. Adrian would back down, not wanting to spark conflict, telling himself that Marjorie's intentions were good. But Eva knew better. Controlling her medical appointments was just another way Marjorie tightened the noose. Eva yearned for her small condo in Queens, where she once lived an independent life, designing logos and marketing materials for local businesses. Now, she couldn't even step outside for a breath of fresh air without someone trailing her. One chilly morning, Eva decided to brave the garden alone. She slipped out through a side door, her coat draped over her shoulders. Her heart hammered, partially from fear of being caught, and partially from the exhilaration of reclaiming a sliver of freedom. Crisp autumn air brushed her cheeks, and she took a long, refreshing breath. As she wandered near the rose bushes, a figure emerged from behind a hedge. It was Victor, Marjorie's personal security guard. "Ma'am," he said, all politeness but not a trace of friendliness, "Mrs. Whitmore asked me to bring you back inside. The air is too cold for you. She's worried about your condition." Eva felt a mix of frustration and despair coil in her chest. "Victor, I'm fine," she insisted, her voice trembling. "I just needed a moment to clear my head." Victor's expression remained unreadable. "With all due respect, ma'am, if something happens, Mrs. Whitmore will hold me responsible." He gently guided her back to the mansion. The towering marble walls and lavish artwork, once breathtaking, now felt like the bars of a prison. That night, as Eva lay beside Adrian, she finally unleashed her frustrations in a tearful outpouring. She recounted every controlling measure, every subtle threat. Adrian held her close, his face etched with guilt and anger. "I'm so sorry," he murmured. "I never wanted you to feel trapped. I promise I'll fix this." Yet morning came, and the same cycle repeated. Adrian confronted Marjorie in the breakfast salon, only to have her cast a sorrowful look that turned the argument around. "I'm merely looking after your wife's well-being," she said, in a tremulous voice. "Isn't that what any caring mother would do?" When Adrian pressed further, Marjorie's facade dropped. "Don't question my devotion, Adrian," she snapped, voice like steel. "You see how fragile Eva is. Do you want your child at risk?" Adrian wavered. He adored Eva, but he also feared that any argument with Marjorie might add stress to Eva's pregnancy. Caught between the two women he loved, he felt paralyzed. That evening, Eva mustered the courage to call her friend Michelle on a landline. "I can't do this anymore," Eva whispered, tears slipping down her face. "I need to leave. I need help." Michelle's tone was urgent on the other end. "Don't worry, Eva. I'm here for you. Let's figure out a plan. My friend, Lily Harper, works at a private pregnancy support center. She might help you find a safe space if you really need to get away. But are you certain?" Eva hesitated. She could flee, but then what about Adrian? She loved him, and part of her yearned for him to stand up against Marjorie with unwavering resolve. Could she really break away without him? The decision loomed over her like a dark cloud. Meanwhile, Marjorie's hostility only grew. One afternoon, Eva caught the older woman rummaging through her personal journal, something deeply intimate to Eva. When Eva gasped in horror, Marjorie refused to apologize. "Don't keep secrets in this house," she said coldly. "I have every right to ensure your mind is stable for motherhood." Eva began to fear that Marjorie would escalate her control into outright harm. She also noticed how the staff treated her differently, some with pity, others with thinly veiled contempt. It was as if Marjorie had spread the rumor that Eva was mentally unstable or unfit. Days turned into a blur. Eva's nightmares were filled with images of Marjorie looming over her bedside, whispering dire threats about the baby. She woke up with her pulse racing, a silent scream trapped in her throat. Adrian tried to console her, but she saw the weariness in his eyes, the conflict in his soul. Could love alone be enough to break the chains Marjorie had wrapped around both of them. It was on a chilly Sunday morning that Eva realized Marjorie's manipulations were not just psychological, but bordering on physical intimidation. The older woman's approach had shifted from snide remarks and controlling behavior to something far more alarming. Eva had been in the music room, attempting to play a gentle lullaby on the family's antique Steinway piano, hoping the soft melody might soothe her frayed nerves. She was lost in thought when Marjorie stepped in, arms folded. "Stop that infernal noise," Marjorie snapped, marching over. "You're disturbing the entire household with your nonsense." Eva stiffened, lifting her hands from the keys. "I'm sorry, I thought some music might do you well to remember your place." Marjorie cut her off sharply. "You think because you married Adrian, you're now an actual part of this family. I've spent decades building the Whitmore name and empire. You come from nothing, some lower middle class background, and think you can waltz in with your modern ideas." She snorted. "My grandchild doesn't need the distraction of your silly hobbies. You should focus on resting and staying obedient." Eva's cheeks burned with both embarrassment and anger. Still, she rose from the piano bench, attempting to remain calm. "I'm not trying to challenge you, Marjorie. I just want a healthy environment for the baby. That includes some happiness." "Happiness," Marjorie repeated in a mocking tone. "You're an ungrateful child who can't see how privileged you are, living in luxury, feeding off my son's wealth." Something within Eva snapped. She was exhausted, her pregnancy hormones magnifying every emotional bruise. "I didn't marry Adrian for his money," she said, her voice trembling. "I love him. I don't deserve to be treated like a prisoner in my own home." Marjorie's eyes flashed dangerously. She stepped closer, forcing Eva to back up against the piano. "Don't you dare speak to me like that," she hissed. "I've tolerated your insolence long enough." Before Eva could respond, Marjorie lunged forward, gripping Eva's wrist and twisting it roughly. Pain shot up Eva's arm, and she let out a startled cry. "Stop," Eva pleaded, her free hand protectively covering her belly. "Please, Marjorie." That was when it happened. Marjorie shoved Eva backward, her lower back slamming into the piano's edge. The jolt raced through Eva's body, her heart pounding in sheer terror for her unborn child. Gasping, she managed to steady herself. A pin-drop silence followed. For a moment, even Marjorie appeared stunned by her own aggression. But the older woman quickly composed herself, smoothing her immaculate chignon. "You will keep your mouth shut about this, or you'll regret it," she said, icily. Then, almost as if to add a final insult, Marjorie simply turned on her heel and strode out of the music room, leaving Eva trembling and clutching her bruised wrist. Tears of pain, anger, and fear streamed down Eva's cheeks as she sank onto the piano bench. She felt not only physically hurt, but also heartbroken, realizing the extent of Marjorie's cruelty. She began to wonder, if Marjorie could do this now, when she was pregnant, what would she do once the baby was born? Eva knew she had to tell Adrian, but as it happened, Adrian had left for a brief day trip to Boston for a philanthropic luncheon he couldn't refuse. By the time he returned late that evening, Eva was in her bedroom, nursing her sore wrist with an ice pack. He noticed her red, swollen eyes. "What happened?" he demanded gently, stepping closer. At first, Eva hesitated. She feared Marjorie's retribution if she revealed the truth, but the memory of her mother-in-law's cold eyes and the pain in her wrist spurred her on. She hurt me, Adrian," Eva whispered, tears leaking from her eyes. "She grabbed my wrist and shoved me against the piano." Adrian's face blanched, Mother, are you sure it wasn't an accident? Eva's expression turned from pained to incredulous. Adrian, she grabbed me. She twisted my wrist. I'm so scared for our baby. Shame flooded Adrian's features. He touched Eva's wrist gently, wincing at the faint bruise. Then he wrapped his arms around her. I'm sorry, he murmured, voice thick with guilt. I'll take care of this. I swear. The next morning at breakfast, Adrian confronted Marjorie in the dining hall. Servants scurried around, preparing an elaborate meal of fresh fruit, pastries, and eggs Florentine. Eva stood off to the side, heart pounding as she watched the confrontation unfold. Mother, Eva told me what happened in the music room, Adrian said, his tone measured but firm. Is it true you pushed her? Marjorie lifted an eyebrow, setting down her teacup with poise. What has she been telling you now? She asked, affecting a dignified sigh. That girl is too emotional, Adrian. She probably stumbled. You know how pregnant women are. Eva inhaled sharply, stepping forward. I didn't stumble. Marjorie flicked her hand dismissively. Don't be hysterical. Adrian, you must see reason. This woman is becoming unhinged. She turned to Eva, narrowing her gaze. Is your next step to accuse me of trying to kill my own grandchild? Adrian's jaw tightened. He approached the table, placing both palms flat on its surface. Mother, I don't care what justifications you have. Don't ever lay a hand on Eva again. The tension was palpable as Marjorie locked eyes with her son, refusing to break the stare. Finally, she sniffed, crossing her arms. If you believe your wife's silly stories over your own mother, that's your choice. I only have this family's best interests at heart. Adrian fought the urge to lash out. Instead, he quietly replied, I love Eva, and I won't allow anyone, including you, to jeopardize her safety or the baby's. This is your warning. Marjorie said nothing. Silence stretched like a taut wire ready to snap, and Eva felt her heartbeat thunder in her ears. She wasn't naive enough to believe Marjorie would simply back down. That single confrontation, though necessary, was also a provocation that might escalate her wrath. After breakfast, Marjorie disappeared into her private study, slamming the door behind her. Adrian pulled Eva aside. Pack a suitcase. We'll leave the estate tonight. I'll book us a suite at the Regency Hotel downtown. We'll be safer there. A fragile surge of hope welled up in Eva. Really? You mean that? He nodded, his gaze determined. Yes. I'm not letting her terrorize you anymore. We'll figure out a new living arrangement. Maybe buy another property she doesn't have access to. This ends now. Eva clasped Adrian's hand in relief, tears glistening in her eyes. Finally, she felt some sense of validation. They still had to navigate the unstoppable force that was Marjorie Whitmore, but at least Adrian was stepping up to shield his wife and unborn child. The plan was straightforward. Eva would quietly pack an overnight bag with essentials, while Adrian pretended he had to attend a spontaneous business meeting in the city. They'd tell no one, not even the staff who might inform Marjorie. Then they'd slip out in Adrian's private car with only his personal driver, James, whom Adrian trusted implicitly. Late afternoon sunlight fell through the stained glass windows of the Whitmore foyer, painting the marble floors in kaleidoscopic colors. Eva clutched her small bag, heart pounding, as she descended the spiral staircase. Adrian was waiting at the bottom, tapping his foot in anxious anticipation. He wore a simple navy suit, a clear attempt to blend the air of normal business with a sense of urgency. He offered a reassuring smile. Ready? Eva nodded, her nerves taut. They moved swiftly through the front corridor, ignoring the questioning looks of house staff. James stood outside, near the limousine, opening the door for them. He didn't ask questions. He'd been with Adrian for years and knew when to respect his employer's silence. Just as Eva climbed into the limo, she heard a voice call out from behind. "Adrian?" Marjorie stood in the grand entrance, her expression calm, but eyes alight with suspicion. She stepped forward, posture rigid. "Where on earth are you going at this hour?" Adrian feigned a casual tone. "Mother, I have a sudden meeting in the city. Eva's joining me. We'll be back tomorrow." Marjorie's jaw tightened. "Why is Eva going with you? You know she needs rest." Adrian shrugged, sliding into the car. "We won't be long." But Marjorie wasn't convinced. She took a step closer, her gaze darting to the luggage in Eva's lap. "You're hiding something," she accused. "Don't think you can sneak away without my knowledge. I won't be left out of decisions affecting my family." Before Adrian could respond, Marjorie lunged toward the door. James, sensing danger, shut it swiftly and jumped into the driver's seat. The engine roared to life. Through the tinted window, Eva saw Marjorie's livid face, shouting something inaudible. Then, they pulled away from the estate. Exhaling a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, Eva's shoulders sagged in relief. Adrian placed a hand on hers. "You're safe now," he said softly, although tension etched lines across his forehead. The drive was mostly quiet, except for James occasionally asking for directions or clarifications. They pulled up to the Regency Hotel, just as dusk settled over the city. A doorman rushed to help them with their bags, and within minutes, they were checked into a luxurious suite on the 15th floor, complete with a skyline view of Manhattan's shimmering lights. Eva let out a shuddering breath as she surveyed the cityscape. "I can't believe we actually left," she murmured, tears threatening to spill. Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced down, brow furrowing. 12 missed calls, all from Mother. His jaw clenched. "I'm turning this off for tonight. Let's just breathe for once." They ordered room service, comfort food, tomato soup, grilled cheese sandwiches, and a side of salad for Eva. For the first time in months, she felt some semblance of calm. Still, guilt nagged at Adrian. "I should have handled this sooner," he said, eyes downcast. "I shouldn't have let her push you around for so long." Eva rested a comforting hand on his. "We're here now, and I'm grateful." Yet neither of them could shake the unease that Marjorie's retaliation might not be far behind. The next morning, Eva awoke to find Adrian staring at her, a conflicted look on his face. "I don't just want to hide here," he confessed. "I want a permanent solution. Mother's controlling nature won't simply vanish. I'm prepared to find us another place to live, somewhere she can't barge in. Are you okay with that?" Eva nodded, tears glistening. "Yes, I can't go back to the mansion, for our baby's sake. We need a fresh start." Adrian squeezed her hand, relief flooding his features. "I'll call my real estate contact, Theodore Wolfe. He's helped me with property deals in the past. We can find a place quickly." Over the next few days, Eva and Adrian toured a few high-end properties in Manhattan, each boasting modern architecture, high security, and plenty of space for a growing family. They found a penthouse in Tribeca with floor-to-ceiling windows, a private terrace, and a nursery space that made Eva tear up with hope. Adrian immediately placed an offer. Meanwhile, back at the Whitmore estate, Marjorie was not idle. She sent threatening messages to Adrian's phone, everything from guilt-tripping emotional texts, "How could you abandon your own mother?" to ominous warnings that he was making a grave mistake. She also tried to contact Eva directly, leaving voicemails that ranged from sickly sweet pleas to biting attacks on Eva's character. One afternoon, as Eva sat in the plush hotel suite, her new phone rang. She froze at the sight of the caller ID. Marjorie had found her number. Against her better judgment, she answered, hand trembling. "What do you want?" Eva said, voice shaky. "I want my son back, you manipulative little tramp," Marjorie hissed. "You think you can steal him away from me with your sob stories?" Tears stung Eva's eyes, but she fought to maintain her composure. "Adrian chose to leave because of your behavior." Marjorie's laughter was cold. "You're fragile, Eva. Don't forget you're pregnant. Stress isn't good for the baby. Are you sure you want to keep pushing me? There might be consequences." Eva's stomach clenched. "Is that a threat?" "Take it however you please," Marjorie replied, before the line went dead. Eva sank onto the sofa, clutching her belly as if to shield her unborn child from Marjorie's words. When Adrian returned from a short business meeting, she recounted the call through tears. His face darkened, a muscle ticking in his jaw. "That's it," he said. "I'll talk to my lawyer, Gerald Hammond. We're going for a restraining order." Though neither admitted it aloud, both feared Marjorie was capable of almost anything to reassert her control. Word traveled fast within high society circles, and soon enough, the tabloids were swirling with rumors about a rift in the Whitmore family. Headlines speculated on the runaway billionaire heir and the disgraced mother-in-law. At first, Adrian tried to maintain a dignified silence, but the pressure mounted. Social events that Adrian would typically attend, fundraisers, galas, business mixers, now bristled with tension. Whispers followed him, speculating about why he had moved to a hotel suite with his pregnant wife. Marjorie, never one to shy away from wielding her influence, was feeding her own narrative into these circles, that Eva was unstable, controlling Adrian for financial gain, and irresponsibly jeopardizing the future Whitmore heir. At a charity banquet hosted by the influential Harrington family, Adrian and Eva decided to make an appearance, partly to refute rumors and partly to maintain crucial philanthropic ties. Eva wore a simple but elegant gown that accentuated her growing baby bump, while Adrian opted for a tailored tuxedo. Both arrived with anxious hearts. The event took place in a grand ballroom, flooded with crystal chandeliers and the hum of polite conversation. They barely had time to greet a few acquaintances. Some extended polite smiles, while others gave them curious, pitying looks, before Marjorie herself swept into the room, accompanied by none other than Edward Whitmore, Adrian's estranged father. Edward had always remained in the background of the family's affairs, traveling frequently and rarely confronting Marjorie. Gasps rippled through the room as people witnessed the sight of mother and father on one side, and Adrian and Eva on the other. For a moment, the entire ballroom seemed to hold its breath. Marjorie approached them with a posture reminiscent of a queen about to reprimand a wayward subject. "How dare you humiliate me like this, Adrian?" she spat, voice low enough not to attract the official event photographers, but loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Edward stood by, an uneasy expression on his face. He was not known for challenging Marjorie, and it seemed tonight would be no different. Adrian took a step forward, placing himself partly in front of Eva. "We're here because we support the Harrington Foundation," he said, voice steady but tense. "We have every right to attend. And for the record, we haven't humiliated anyone but ourselves by allowing this drama to go public." Marjorie's eyes narrowed. "You ungrateful child, after everything I've done for you." Suddenly, a hush fell as a man in a well-tailored navy suit approached. It was Harold Harrington, the host of the event, accompanied by his wife, Veronica. They had heard the whispers and decided to intervene. "Is everything all right?" Harold asked in a concerned tone, eyes darting between the Whitmores. Marjorie quickly replaced her venomous glare with a brittle smile. Just a minor family misunderstanding, Harold. We don't want to make a scene. Ava could feel her pulse racing, her hand instinctively cradling her belly. This confrontation in public was exactly what she feared, yet she realized it might be a chance to assert her truth. Before Adrian could respond, Eva took a measured breath and spoke up. I'm sorry for any discomfort this is causing, Harold, but there's a reason Adrian and I have distanced ourselves from his mother. It involves my well-being, both emotional and physical. A murmur of surprise rippled through the surrounding onlookers. Marjorie's face turned stony. Ava, don't you— It's fine, Harold, Adrian interjected, stepping in. We appreciate your concern, but perhaps we should discuss this in private. Harold glanced around and noticed the growing crowd. You can use my study, he offered, gesturing to a door off the side of the ballroom. I'd like to keep tonight's event about the children's charity if possible. Reluctantly, Marjorie and Edward followed Adrian and Eva into the plush study, where thick carpet muffled the outside chatter. The door closed, shutting out the curious eyes. No sooner had it clicked shut than Marjorie rounded on Eva. You dare imply I abused you, she hissed, voice shaking with rage. Don't forget who holds the power here. The Whitmore name is known worldwide. You'll never escape it. Adrian stepped between them, fists clenched. That's enough. We're done, Mother. Edward raised a hand in a half-hearted gesture. Marjorie, calm down. Let's not drag this into more drama. But his tone lacked real conviction. Eva's eyes flashed with the courage she had gathered over these tumultuous weeks. I was forced to leave for the safety of my baby and myself. Marjorie has been controlling, manipulative, and even physically aggressive. We have no choice but to keep our distance. Marjorie let out a bitter laugh. Adrian, you see what a liar she is. You truly believe I'd harm my own grandchild? Adrian's voice was resolute. You've done enough to convince me that Eva is telling the truth. For a moment, everyone stood in standoff silence. Then Marjorie, glowering, turned to Edward. Do something, she demanded. Edward opened his mouth, but only a weak sigh escaped. Adrian, you know how your mother gets. Maybe Eva misunderstood. No, Adrian snapped, frustration boiling over. Stop making excuses for her. This conversation is finished. If you persist, we will seek legal measures. A vein pulsed in Marjorie's temple. She pointed a finger at Eva, lips trembling with fury. You won't win this, girl, she spat. You think you can turn my son against me, but I assure you, I've been building my influence for decades. You and your unborn child will face the consequences. Then, with a flourish of her expensive shawl, Marjorie stormed out, Edward trailing after her with a forlorn look. Left alone in the study, Adrian pulled Eva into his arms, feeling her tremble. We should leave, he whispered. I'm sorry you had to endure that. Eva nodded, struggling to keep tears at bay. It's okay, she whispered, voice raw. I'd rather have the truth out in the open than keep living in silent fear. A few minutes later, they discreetly exited the Harrington event, ignoring the paparazzi's flashbulbs and the hush of gossip that followed them. While the public showdown was uncomfortable, Ava felt a strange sense of relief. She had stood her ground against Marjorie, refusing to remain silent. Now the question was, how far would Marjorie go to reassert her control? Despite their efforts to break free, Marjorie's looming presence was felt everywhere. Adrian's phone kept buzzing with unknown numbers. Messages appeared, threatening to release damaging lies about Eva to tabloids or even tie up Adrian's business dealings in legal red tape. Some messages were thinly veiled blackmail. If Adrian didn't return to the Whitmore estate, Marjorie would sabotage certain philanthropic projects or freeze access to family trust funds that supported vital research programs. The newly purchased Tribeca penthouse became Eva's refuge. She spent her days arranging the nursery, determined to create a safe environment for her soon-to-arrive baby. Adrian juggled a hectic schedule, setting up new lines of security, liaising with lawyers about restraining orders, and managing his business empire. He also planned a grand baby shower for Eva, hoping to fill her life with positivity and supportive friends. Yet, an undercurrent of tension existed at all times. Eva often gazed out the penthouse windows, scanning the streets below with an anxious heart. She half expected a car full of Marjorie's associates to appear, dragging her back to the estate. Every unexpected knock at the door made her pulse spike. About a week after the public confrontation, Eva's friend Michelle Oberton dropped by with homemade muffins. They chatted in the living room, the city skyline stretching behind them. Michelle spoke softly, cautious of Eva's fragile state. "I've done some digging," Michelle began, sipping tea. "Lily Harper, at the Pregnancy Support Center, told me about other high society families where controlling in-laws tried to manipulate custody or parenting rights. We need to be sure Marjorie doesn't try to claim that you're unfit to mother the baby." Eva tensed. Could she do that? "Anything's possible with her influence," Michelle cautioned, "especially if she's willing to lie or fabricate evidence." Panic flared in Eva's chest. She recalled the journals Marjorie had read, the staff at the mansion who might testify against her if Marjorie paid them enough. "I need to protect myself," Eva murmured. "I should document everything that's happened." Michelle nodded. "Exactly. Keep a record of all incidents, calls, messages, even medical visits. You have Dr. Cecilia Montoya, right? She can vouch for your health and well-being." That afternoon, when Adrian returned from a meeting, Eva updated him on her conversation with Michelle. Together, they began compiling a file. Timestamps of every threatening voicemail, screenshots of text messages, even a statement from Eva detailing Marjorie's physical aggression in the music room. Adrian passed this to his lawyer, Gerald Hammond, who quietly readied it for potential legal battles. A few days later, a letter arrived at their penthouse via certified mail. Eva's hands shook as she opened it. It was from Marjorie's own lawyer, a formal notice accusing Eva of mental instability and parental negligence, implying that once the baby was born, Marjorie might seek legal guardianship. The letter claimed Eva had proven herself incapable of nurturing an heir to the Whitmore family. Eva's breath caught, tears blurring her vision. She showed the letter to Adrian, who turned pale with rage. "This is war," he muttered, crushing the letter in his fist. "I won't let her do this to you, to us." They immediately contacted Gerald Hammond, who advised them to prepare for the worst. "While it's difficult for a grandmother to claim custody under normal circumstances, your mother has significant resources," the lawyer warned. "We need to gather every piece of evidence that Eva is stable, healthy, and a fit mother." During that same week, Adrian discovered that certain board members of his company, Whitmore Enterprises, had received complaints from Marjorie about his irresponsible leadership. She was attempting to undermine his position, all in a twisted bid to force him back under her thumb. "It's like she's attacking us from all sides," Eva whispered one night, wrapping her arms around her belly as she sat in bed. Adrian took her hand in both of his. "We're going to stand firm. She may have power, but she won't destroy us." Yet as the weeks rolled on, Eva noticed a change in Adrian. He was worn thin by the constant attacks, juggling corporate battles, the looming lawsuit threats, and ensuring Eva's safety. She worried the stress would affect his health or overshadow the joy of their impending parenthood. Late at night, she'd find him in the living room, staring out at the glittering skyline, phone in hand, tension carved into his features. "Adrian," she said gently one such evening, slipping her arms around him. "We'll get through this." He turned to her, eyes heavy. "I never thought my own mother would become an enemy," he murmured. "It's surreal. Part of me still wishes for reconciliation, but I can't let her near you or our baby, not with the way she's acting." Eva placed her palm over his heart. "You're doing the right thing. Our baby's safety comes first." Despite the darkness of Marjorie's threats, small moments of warmth and love emerged. They assembled the crib together, painting the nursery walls in a soothing shade of pale yellow. They attended a prenatal class with Dr. Montoya, who praised Eva's health and told them the baby was growing beautifully. For an hour each day, Adrian and Eva would walk hand in hand through a nearby park, forging a quiet sense of normalcy. The underlying fear, however, never fully disappeared. Any day, Marjorie could escalate her efforts, perhaps meddling with hospital records, bribing staff, or even appearing at their doorstep unannounced. They were at the mercy of a powerful woman with no moral qualms about tearing her own family apart. Tension crescendoed when Eva entered her third trimester. Dr. Montoya recommended she avoid stress as much as possible. Easy advice to give, but hard to follow in the face of Marjorie's unyielding vendetta. Eva began to have bouts of high blood pressure, and her doctor warned of potential complications if the anxiety continued. One late afternoon, as Eva rested in the penthouse living room, she felt a sudden tightening in her abdomen. Fear prickled in her mind. Was she going into early labor? She breathed through the discomfort until it subsided, but it was a stark reminder of how vulnerable she was. Adrian, upon learning this, decided to accelerate the legal process. Gerald Hammond filed an official restraining order against Marjorie Whitmore, citing harassment, threats, and documented instances of physical aggression. The evidence was compelling, and the court quickly scheduled a preliminary hearing to decide whether to grant the order. On the day of the hearing, Eva and Adrian arrived at the courthouse, hearts pounding. It was a modest building in the heart of Manhattan, a swirl of attorneys, clerks, and anxious families. Eva wore a simple maternity dress, while Adrian donned a subdued grey suit. Neither wanted to appear flashy or arrogant, only truthful. They found Marjorie already there, with her legal entourage, including a high-powered attorney rumored to have ties with top judicial figures. She shot Eva a venomous look as they passed in the corridor. Meanwhile, Edward Whitmore was conspicuously absent, perhaps unwilling to face the spectacle. Inside the courtroom, the proceedings began swiftly. Gerald Hammond presented their case. Testimonies, documented threats, medical notes from Dr. Montoya verifying Eva's mental and physical well-being, and a photograph of Eva's bruised wrist from the music room altercation. Eva trembled on the stand as she recounted the psychological and physical abuse. Adrian's jaw tightened, tears burning in his eyes as he listened to his wife relive the nightmare. Then it was Marjorie's turn. She portrayed Eva as a manipulative gold digger who orchestrated injuries for sympathy. She even submitted statements from staff at the Whitmore estate, many of whom owed Marjorie their livelihood, claiming Eva was unbalanced, prone to mood swings, and had staged confrontations. The tension was suffocating. Eva felt her pulse pounding in her throat, her hands clammy as she resisted the urge to bolt from the courtroom. Adrian's fingers laced with hers, a steady reminder of his support. After hours of back and forth, the judge, a stern-faced woman named Justice Delgado, called for order. She took a moment to review the evidence, her gaze flicking between Marjorie and Ava. "This is not an easy case," the judge began. "Family disputes rarely are. However, the evidence presented, voicemails, text messages, medical records, suggests that Ms. Marjorie Whitmore has acted in a manner that any reasonable person would deem threatening and harmful. Furthermore, I have seen insufficient proof to substantiate Ms. Whitmore's counterclaims of manipulation against Mrs. Eva Donovan Whitmore. The staff testimonies conflict with medical and photographic evidence." Marjorie's attorney tried to interrupt, but Justice Delgado silenced him with a raised hand. "The court is inclined to grant a temporary restraining order against Ms. Marjorie Whitmore, preventing her from contacting or approaching within 200 feet of Mr. Adrian Whitmore, Mrs. Eva Donovan Whitmore, or their child once born, pending a final hearing. Ms. Whitmore will also be required to undergo a psychological evaluation if she wishes to contest full custody of the unborn child." A surge of relief washed over Eva, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. Adrian exhaled a shaky breath, reaching for her hand. Marjorie, however, stood seething. In a final act of defiance, she pointed an accusing finger at Eva. "You'll regret turning my son against me," she spat, voice echoing through the courtroom. Her attorney quickly tried to hush her, but the outburst already hung in the air like a toxic cloud. "You'll be removed if you don't hold your tongue," the judge snapped, banging her gavel. "Court is adjourned." Escorted by security, Marjorie left the courtroom, her fury palpable. In contrast, Eva and Adrian stepped out into the corridor, a sense of lightness filling their hearts despite the tension. Michelle, who had come for moral support, rushed over and enveloped Eva in a hug. "You did it," Michelle whispered tearfully. "You stood your ground." Adrian glanced at Eva, his eyes filled with admiration and regret. "I'm so sorry for everything you've endured," he murmured, placing a hand protectively on her swollen belly. "But I swear, from now on, I'm fully committed to shielding you and our child from any harm." Eva nodded, blinking back tears. They were not naive. The restraining order was a major victory, but there was still a long road ahead. Marjorie might contest it in a final hearing or find underhanded ways to cause more trouble. Yet for the first time in months, hope glimmered. Back in the penthouse that evening, they shared a quiet dinner, toasting with sparkling cider to the future. While the scars left by Marjorie's abuse would take time to heal, Eva felt her chest fill with renewed faith. Faith in her own resilience, in Adrian's love, and in the life growing within her. In the weeks following the court's decision, a fragile peace settled over Eva and Adrian's lives. Marjorie was legally barred from contacting them, and the hush of her absence felt surreal. No more threatening calls in the middle of the night. No more scathing messages delivered through lawyers. Yet Ava couldn't help but remain vigilant, half expecting Marjorie to circumvent the restraining order in some clandestine way. Dr. Montoya closely monitored Eva's pregnancy, recommending light exercises, plenty of rest, and a supportive environment. Freed from the daily torment of Marjorie's presence, Eva's blood pressure stabilized, and her health improved drastically. She focused on the baby's nursery, taking joy in every small detail. From hanging pastel artwork on the walls to folding tiny onesies in a chest of drawers. Adrian was equally enthusiastic, reading up on fatherhood, even practicing swaddling techniques on a teddy bear. Around the 8th month, they hosted an intimate baby shower, at the Tribeca penthouse. Close friends like Michelle, Lily Harper, and a few of Adrian's trusted colleagues attended. Balloons, flowers, and laughter filled the space that had once felt overshadowed by fear. It was a day of celebration, a beacon of hope amid the tumult that had plagued them. Between sips of fruit punch, Lily Harper asked, "Do you think Marjorie will try anything when the baby's born?" Eva exchanged a look with Adrian. "We can't rule it out," she admitted softly, "but we have the court order, and Adrian's lawyer is on standby if she tries to pull any stunts." Adrian nodded, placing a reassuring hand on Eva's shoulder. "We're also in the process of installing extra security measures at the penthouse, cameras, an alarm system, just in case." The conversation quieted for a moment, the weight of Marjorie's looming threat palpable. But soon enough, the baby shower resumed with games and genuine excitement for the little life soon to enter the world. As Ava's due date approached, she and Adrian made arrangements to deliver at a reputable private hospital. Dr. Montoya would oversee the birth, ensuring minimal stress and maximum comfort. The hospital administration, forewarned of possible family complications, added special security protocols. Marjorie's name and photo circulated among staff to ensure she couldn't sneak in. Early one morning, Eva woke with labor pains that gradually intensified. Adrian, though carefully prepared, was a bundle of nerves. He fumbled with the hospital bag, nearly forgetting his phone on the nightstand in his rush. Michelle arrived to help, offering calming reassurances and guiding them down to the waiting car. The city lights blurred past as they sped toward the hospital. Despite her contractions, Eva leaned into Adrian's arms, feeling both anxious and exhilarated. They were on the cusp of a profound moment, one that would change their lives forever. Within the controlled environment of the hospital suite, Dr. Montoya calmly guided Eva through each contraction, coaching Adrian on how to support her best. Hours felt like days. Each wave of pain pushed Eva closer to the edge of her endurance. Yet, as she clung to Adrian's hand, she drew strength from his presence. He whispered words of encouragement, kissing her forehead, promising that their child would be safe and loved. After intense labor, a newborn's cry filled the room. A baby boy, delicate and perfect, announced his arrival. Tears streamed down Eva's face as the nurse placed the wriggling infant against her chest. Adrian, overcome by emotion, pressed his lips to Eva's temple. "He's here," Adrian whispered, voice choked with gratitude. For a few minutes, the world around them faded into a comforting blur. The battles with Marjorie, the sleepless nights of worry, all of it seemed distant compared to the warmth of their new baby's tiny heartbeat against Eva's. The next day, the news spread throughout their social circles. Adrian and Eva had welcomed a healthy baby boy named Theo Donovan Whitmore. Congratulatory messages flooded in, some from well-wishers, others from business associates eager to stay in Adrian's good graces. But one message stood out, a solitary card delivered by courier with no return address. Adrian opened it cautiously. The card read, in looping cursive, "Congratulations on your little one. He'll always be a Whitmore. Don't forget that." There was no signature, but they both recognized Marjorie's handwriting instantly. Eva's hand shook as she placed it aside. But she looked at Adrian, who gently cradled baby Theo in his arms, and saw the unwavering resolve in his gaze. "We're together," he reminded her softly. "No matter what she tries, we protect our family." Eva exhaled, nodding. The fear might linger, but the love she felt for her husband and newborn son was stronger. The first chapter of their child's life would not be tainted by Marjorie's cruelty. they had broken free, forging a new path defined not by the Whitmore legacy alone, but by the love they shared as a family. A new dawn had arrived, and with it, a fervent hope that the scars of the past would heal in the warmth of an unbreakable bond. Thank you for following the emotional and turbulent journey of mother-in-law tortures pregnant wife. But the billionaire is standing behind and witnessing everything. Eva's struggle against Marjorie's oppression shows that courage, love, and perseverance can overcome even the most entrenched family dynamics. In the end, Eva and Adrian discovered that true strength comes not from wealth or status, but from unwavering loyalty and the willingness to protect each other, no matter the cost. If this story gripped your heart and kept you rooting for Eva every step of the way, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support enables us to bring you more riveting tales of resilience, romance, and redemption. We hope you'll stay tuned for future stories that explore the depths of human emotion and the power of hope in the face of adversity. Thank you for watching.